What up, athletes? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're back on Mandela Avenue in this neck of the woods, and some people asked me to look at Meadowbrook Gardens after I finished looking at Kitty. So that's what I'm doing today. What we're looking at is Jamoon Drive. This is Jamoon Drive in Meadowbrook Gardens. This is Mandela Avenue, and the next intersection is Meadowbrook Drive. So the plan for today is we're going to give you an introduction to Meadowbrook Gardens. Just a taste because it's pretty large and gonna have to come back with some strategy. Right now we're at the Guyana National Gymnasium. This is the National Gymnasium on Mandela Avenue. See. Don't know if it's being used anymore. They have a basketball court. I guess they play some soccer there. There's a tennis court, I see. I've actually not played tennis here, although I used to coach tennis for kids in the summer here at the National Gymnasium. I haven't done it in a number of years. They play table tennis indoors and lawn tennis outdoors. Okay, this is the flats for the police, top brass of the police. And we're looking at Mandela Avenue. So Meadowbrook Gardens is one of those housing developments that was built in the 60s, 70s, during the years of the 28-year reign of the PNC. And so a lot of the residents in Meadowbrook Gardens at one point were people who were affiliated with the PNC, similar to the new Prattville 1 and Prattville 2 that are now popular with friends of the ruling PDPC. So there is a little bit of politics, I suppose, involved in this exploration. However, it's not a political vlog. So this is Meadowbrook Drive. You can see Meadowbrook Drive, and that is Mandela Avenue. Morning. So we're going to enter Meadowbrook Gardens from Meadowbrook Drive. This was some of the early housing schemes that they built. These are multifamily units built in the 1960s as low-cost housing or affordable houses. So it's not that Guyana and Guyanese don't know how to build affordable houses, because these affordable homes were built for the public service, for public servants, well in the early 60s and 70s, right? Because these homes were built based on the British model, right? That's how houses in Britain were built. These multi-family units, you can see based on the colors, right? So there's blue, there's pink, and there's kind of a gray color. Each one of those colors represents the families, the units. So they were like 3 families in each of those homes. So this is Meadowbrook Drive, guys. We're entering Meadowbrook Gardens from Meadowbrook Drive. This first street, there are no names on the streets, so you're gonna have to go to Google Maps to see. But I believe this first street is, what is it? I know it's Cuyuni on that side, and I don't remember what the name of this street is. It begins with S. Right, so it's kind of a circle. Morning. So what we're looking for is changes in Meadowbrook Gardens. So some of you have lived in this neck of the woods in Meadowbrook Gardens, and you would recognize some of the homes in this neck of the woods. And the question is, can you see any changes? What is going to happen, of course, over time is, because of the oil and gas industry and because of the rapid expansion of the Guyanese economy, this neck of the woods is also going to be changed. Alright, I don't remember the name of these streets. I'm going to have to consult the map again to figure it out. I know the main streets, Jamun Drive on the other side, the other boundary, Meadowbrook Drive, the one we're going down right now. There's a church, I believe, on this side. Let's see. Church of the Nazarene, I believe. Right, there's a Church of the Nazarene on this side. And you can see some multi-story buildings, residential buildings, also being built. But here in Meadowbrook Gardens, this was a early housing development for middle class, mostly public servants, and so the houses were built by the individual public servants. Over time, like the rest of the city, some of these people migrated and came back and built bigger homes, and that is what is reflected in some of these. For example, these new homes were probably built more recently. On that side, you can also see some of the homes, some of the original homes that were built. Then, of course, these homes were built more recently, modified. Renovated and enlarged. Morning. Some homes, like that one, probably in the process of being built for over a decade now. I mentioned to somebody who wanted to flip homes in Guyana. So there's this guy who has a business idea that he'd come down here and take advantage of the rapid expansion of homes. I think this is, what is it, Waney Drive. Meadowbrook Gardens. And we're on Meadowbrook Drive. So yeah, one of my subscribers wanted to know whether he could flip homes down here in Guyana. Morning. And I told him it's really not a good idea, because in Guyana a lot of the homes are built piecemeal, a piece at a time, because what happens is that people don't take mortgages to build homes. They simply build it as they get money. As the money comes in, they would build an extension or build a piece of the home. So a house could probably take a decade or more, sometimes 20 years to build, because that is how the money comes in. Now this part of Meadowbrook Gardens is the deeper inside. It's newer homes and older homes. Some of them, for example, for this one, was probably built in the 1990s, right? Based on the fact that it's fully concrete. Lot 223 Meadowbrook Gardens, and 1990s is when they renovated the homes from wooden to concrete homes, and some of them were built by, for example, that one, fully concrete home, which tells you it was probably built in the 1980s, 1990s. The style also, the architecture tells you when it was built. But some of these people back in the time when it was built were the upper echelons of the public service. So these were fairly well off, permanent secretaries in the ministries and so on. And so had access to capital and built very big homes. But eventually they also migrated. And that's why some of these homes, like I showed you, those two, pink one in the middle and that yellow one, appear to be empty. What happens is people built their homes and eventually migrated probably to Canada, the US, UK, and haven't yet come back to this neighborhood. But eventually when they come back, they renovate and build their homes, which is what has happened with some of these homes. They have been renovated and rebuilt by migrants, people who've come back to live in the community. So what I'm saying is that this section of this Meadowbrook Gardens was actually built or occupied by some of the upper echelons in the public service at the time when it was built. And so it's reflected in the size of the homes, the size of the lots, which were probably much more expensive to buy back then. Right, these were larger lots. Imagine this is actually in the city of Georgetown, but you could get a house lot that is probably 3 times the size of a house lot in the center of town. And this meant that you could build a bigger home. And so some of these homes, like this one with the clay brick, that also tells you when it was built, because there was a time when Guyana, we had a clay brick factory, and the homes were built from clay brick back in the 1980s to 1990s when clay brick was readily available. But what's happened over time is that people have renovated some of these homes, right? People have come back. This one, for example, I think is still unoccupied. But people have come back and renovated these homes and built bigger homes because they have the space to do so. The house lots are much bigger in this neck of the woods. Right, Meadowbrook Gardens. So this one, for example, is a 3-story residential building. It was built here in probably 2000s, I would say 2000 between 2000 and 2010, maybe a little later. But this one, on the other hand, is one of the original clay brick homes, right? The architecture shows you. The fact that it was completely concrete tells you that it was built in the 1990s perhaps, and it was fully 1980s, 1990s when there was a clay brick factory. This one, of course, more recently in the architecture tells you it was modified or renovated recently. Concrete homes, these were probably built in the 2000s, right, based on the architecture. At some point, for example, this architecture became popular because people started remigrating from the American South, from Canada, and from Georgia, and built some of these homes in the style that they lived in, the houses they lived in back in the 1950s. Dogs. So this neck of the woods tended to be the top brass of the political class. So some of the politicians and the business people build their homes in this neck of the woods. They have security guards and so on, cameras and so on. So this is Meadowbrook Gardens in 2023. These homes were probably built about 20 years ago, 10 or 20 years ago. I'm familiar with some of these homes because I've actually visited friends and family in this neck of the woods, and I know what they are on the inside and so on. This is a cul-de-sac, I think. There was a house that is being built in the lot, an empty lot at the end of the street. Don't know if it's built, if it's completed yet, but I'll come back and take a look at it at some other time. But this, guys, is Meadowbrook Gardens, giving you a taste for what it looks like in this neck of the woods. The political side I mentioned at the beginning of the video is that this neck of the woods tended to be occupied by people in the opposition or friends and relations of people in the opposition, and so it's kind of the opposite of Prattville 1 and Prattville 2 in this end of Meadowbrook Gardens. But what we've done is we've passed through at least two types of homes in Meadowbrook Gardens, two sections of Meadowbrook Gardens. In the beginning, in the first section, we actually saw that some of those homes are actually built for middle income and affordable homes, right? Those were the multifamily buildings, multifamily units. But down here at the back of Meadowbrook Gardens, these homes were built for people who were able to purchase larger lots, right? Larger house lots, and eventually built their own much larger homes. But as I said, the style, right, the architecture reflected what was popular back in the 1980s, 1990s, and so on. And so that the style of homes that were built very large and on large lots simply reflected the means and the time, right? This is the end of Meadowbrook Gardens. This is the eastern end. Like I said, you'd have to go on Google to find out the names of some of these drives, some of these streets. Google Maps will probably give you a more accurate name layout convention of these streets. But this is the eastern end of Meadowbrook Gardens, and we're actually concentrated in this video on exploring the south side, because on the other half of Meadowbrook Drive, where we entered, is a similar plot of land that was divided up and eventually turned into residential homes. All right, so that's what's up, guys. That's what's happening here in Meadowbrook Gardens. For those of you who are familiar with the neighborhood, share with us in the comments below what has changed, what is new, and how is it different from the Meadowbrook Gardens you remember back in the day when you lived here or when you were familiar with this neighborhood. Like I said, this is about 60 years old. This neighborhood is about 60 years old compared to Prattville 1 and 2, which were built in the 90s and 2000s. Those are about 30 years old, 15 to 30 years old. So the styles, you can compare them. You can go back and take a look at those. Go back and take a look at some of the videos that I did on Prattville 1 and 2, and you can compare. What you're looking for is comparisons in architecture and the layout of the neighborhood, the layout of the streets and the homes. So that's it, guys. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. In the comments below, tell me what you think about this section of Meadowbrook Gardens. If you're familiar with it, share some of your stories, some of your experiences living in this neck of the woods. and share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening here in Georgetown, Guyana in 2023 as the country grows and expands in the era of oil and gas. Later! In future videos, we're going to take a look at some of the other neighborhoods that have developed around Meadowbrook Gardens in more recent times, like Sophia and Sophia backlands, urban backlands, and so on.